Hi, everybody. My name is Danica Jones. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing at Fabricut Incorporated, and I am really excited to be joining you today along with Michel Smith Boyd, Lauren, Nicole, and Vern Yip to discuss the path to licensing and product design. I want to first say thank you. This was presented by Comm Collective, a group of female communications professionals committed to generating authentic, constructive conversations like the one we're having today. Comm Collective is devoted to building a stronger community of communications professionals for the betterment of the art, design, and lifestyle industries and those they serve. So we're going to go in and do quick introductions for everybody, and then we'll dive into the fun stuff about licensing. So Michelle, I'll introduce you first, founder and creative director of the award-winning interior design firm Smith Boyd, and an ongoing contributor for HGTV's House Hunters, star of Bravo's hit design series Buying It Blind, and licensor of paintings sourced globally at retailers including Z Gallery and Neiman Marcus. And you currently have licensed collections with Verde Home and Left Bank Art. Hello, Michelle. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. That's always so interesting to listen to things about yourself. Like, oh, I
Right?
should update that, or maybe you should take that off. Or, ooh, I
Yeah,
forgot.
yeah. I've never kept my bio current, so
Yeah.
all right.
I accept, though. I accept.
All right, all right. Lauren Clement is an award-winning Charlotte-based interior designer with 14 years experience in residential, commercial, renovation, and new construction design. And she serves as a brand ambassador for manufacturers, voices expert advice on industry panels and podcasts, and is a contributing editor for Kitchen and Bath Business Magazine. Hello, Lauren.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, awesome to have you here. And Vern Yip, veteran interior designer and television star, seen on TLC's Trading Spaces, HGTV, NBC's Today Show, CNN, and Live with Kelly and Ryan. Vern is also the author of New York Times bestsellers Design Wise and Vacation of Home, both of which I own and rely on for my own interiors constantly, and the designer of several product lines, including fabrics, trims, and wall coverings through Fabricut's own trend brand, as well as lighting, home decor, and accessory lines. Vern, welcome.
Thank you. It's very, very nice to be with everybody.
Of course. So let's get into your backstories. At what point did you all decide to pursue product design and licensing? Michelle, let's start with you.
I knew you would do that, Danica.
Next to me on the screen.
It's okay. It's okay. You know what? Honestly, I just started kind of early on. It sounds really arrogant, but it was just ambitious more than arrogance. But when I went to design school, I knew that I wanted to make some kind of contribution to this industry. So even before going to school, I knew that eventually I wanted to be Martha Stewart. I wanted to have some kind of product. I wanted to do something. Honestly, I felt so grateful to discover interior design. You know, it was a little bit later. I had already been in fashion and obsessed with architecture. And when I found this world that merged the two, I thought, oh, I've got to give it something back because it's giving me so much. And so I knew that really early on, but I think it started probably, my first collection probably was about 4 years into owning my business. And it was a regional collection with the Verde Home.
Awesome. Awesome. Vern, what about you?
I think similarly, getting into product design and having this idea of building my own brand was something that I, wanted to do very, very early on. But, I think it started because, I would walk around and I would sort of see what was out in the marketplace. And I would think to myself, well, I would like to do something a little bit different. I would like to create something or offer something that isn't currently in the marketplace. And I always think that that's kind of like a good indicator of whether or not you'll be able to have a better chance of success at launching product is if you are actually offering something that not only is a very clear and distinctive point of view that is yours, but but that also that you have the chance to make somebody's life better through what you put into the marketplace that, you know, isn't currently already in the marketplace.
Mhm.
Awesome. Lauren?
So a little bit differently, I'd say it was probably 8 or 9 years into having my design business. And, I'd work on projects and say, well, gosh, in my head, I really want this fabric or this chair, this piece of furniture. And as my business grew and evolved and my social media presence grew, it was almost this joining of, well, maybe I can do that and put these things that are in my head that I would really like to see in my designs out into the world, be it furniture, paint color, and it really just sort of evolved from there.
That's awesome. I think that's definitely interesting to hear the common thread. There's some other interior designers that are product developers as well that I've spoken to that talk about this void in the marketplace. There's something that you need that other people are probably going to need as well. And being able to create that for them, it's got to be an incredibly fulfilling experience to know that what you're doing for your own design is actually helping other people accomplish their designs too. So let's talk about, why did you all pursue product design and licensing versus just doing it on your own? Or, what was the decision to pursue some kind of partnership with a brand?
Is that me again?
Well, Michelle, you can you volunteered yourself.
We'll just go in order. I'm perfectly fine with
I love that.
So I feel like luckily I was approached first before I approached the brand.
Okay.
And that honestly gave me the confidence going forward. And that deal didn't actually work out, but it gave me confidence because I felt like, okay, at least I know I'm doing something right, where I'm standing out enough that they're seeing my work or they're appreciating it. And that actually was a huge turning point. That meant the world to me, just that little validation at the time. You know how it is for a new designer. We're like, I'm looking confident on the outside, but I'm shaking in my boots on the inside, walking through, market. It's so huge and overwhelming. And the idea of thinking I could represent this brand is like, so, once I was approached, then I felt more comfortable putting myself out there and starting the conversations. But that's how it started for me. In most cases, the brand came to me. But I was definitely ready. A little too eager, but definitely ready.
That's great. What about you, Vern?
I always like to say to people, I suck at everything in life except for design. I'm terrible at everything else, and that is the truth. And I think it's important to be honest with yourself. We all can't be experts at everything. It's important to be honest with yourself in terms of assessing what your strengths are and where your weaknesses, and to find people in your life to help supplement those areas that you're not as strong. And I think that's really where a valuable partner comes into play. Launching products successfully in this huge marketplace is really difficult. It requires a lot of knowledge. It requires a lot of expertise. It requires a huge investment and, just great design, great ideas, great passion, unfortunately, isn't always enough. You need to have a great partner sometimes who really has the know-how and who you share a vision with. I think that's really been the important parts of where I have found success in the licensing world, is to really not only have a great partner, but have a great partner who understands you and who you understand. And I would say that the other part, this is sort of deviating a little bit, but the other part is that um, I'm incredibly hands-on in my partnerships, and you can attest to that, Danica. I am not outsourcing design. I am not outsourcing, direction or input or anything like that. And I have said to all the sales reps, for all the different partners that I have. Let me hit the road with you. Let me carry your bags when you visit customers. Let me understand what it is that you need that maybe you're not getting. You have to be incredibly, incredibly involved, in my opinion, if you stand any chance of success. So even though, I didn't launch product on my own, even though I have partners in all of these different licensing deals, I am still incredibly hands-on with it. And in my opinion, that is really one of the only ways to succeed.
Good insight.
Yeah.
Yep. Amen to that.
Yeah.
So when I was first approached by Paint Line to have, they said, you have a big presence in our area. We want you to have the Laura Nicole color of the year. What is that going to be? And I got to create my own paint color, which, by the way, there is a lot of science and math behind what goes into each paint color. It was fun to have learned that process. And so that was sort of my first step into, wow, somebody, I know I work with a lot of clients and have a good following on social media, but when that one paint color, just one, became such a buzz, locally and beyond, it just really sparked something inside of me to be able to take other parts of design and other elements. And, I had always in the back of my mind, like I talked about how this in the beginning for me was, I want to create things that I can't find and I can't put my hands on, or put my own personal twist on something that I want to share with the masses. And so that one paint color fueled other things. And then very similar to Michelle, I was approached for my first product line, and that didn't work out either. And, that was sort of like, okay, well, we had so many great ideas, and it was so fun, to go through that process and seeing what could be. It was definitely fueled my fire to really think about, how do I do this? And I do work with a great team who leads the path, because I'm a small fish and this is a very big pond of design. And it does take, I think, a very special presence and knowledge, and what is your stamp going to be to get yourself out there. And so together, I'm working with a great team to be able to put my mark on that. And I think just working hard to be yourself and get your identity out there in a positive way is a really important thing to remember, because it is a long process, and staying strong and positive through getting all that creative energy out there is a really good thing.
Sure.
Absolutely. I do think that one of the really cool things about what each one of you has done as far as your own products go is the personal touch. Lauren, I know that your paint colors are all named after equestrian related things. We had talked about that a little bit. And, art is just such a personal thing to create your own artwork, Michelle, and to put it out there. And Vern, yours global travel inspiration. To be able to do something like that has to be just incredibly rewarding to put your own personal, we're putting you out there as, with these products and weaving your own kind of personal inspiration into it. So let's dig into something a little different. Let's talk about some of the challenges of the product design process. What are some of the things that you've come up against that have been difficult, or some of the things that you've dealt with that you feel it would be helpful for designers to know as part of that experience?
I'm going to piggyback on a couple of things that you guys said, Lauren and Vern. I think the longer I'm in this business, the more of myself I actually become. Our points of view evolve and so forth. And I just had a conversation with one of my vendors about, oh, I love this brand, but I feel like they go a step too far on everything. And she said, maybe they should change it. And I said, no, they really shouldn't, because I can go somewhere else for the point of view that I'm looking for. That works for someone else other than me. And I don't want to, we want to bring things to the market that, we're missing, right? But what's missing is really just that, our points of view. And that's what my products look like. So the idea of becoming more of myself and being more clear about, what I want my products to say and or represent when I'm not there to explain it, you know, to a client. I want whatever I'm projecting to be really clear, a clear and concise message. And I think that's the biggest challenge, you know, because you have to consider so many things, you know, the brand you're working with and, you know, what their mission statement is and what they want to deliver to our community, but also the end user and, you know, how it's actually going to work. Where do we compromise? Because there's always compromise, you know. Everything that I make in my head costs way more than anybody's willing to pay for it. So there's so much thought in everything. I think being able to deliver something at the end that's I'm still proud of, that that still represents me. And the other part with Vern, you know, not being so eager. I was so excited at the beginning, you know, hey, they like me, you know, yes. But every deal is not a great fit. And having a great partner or a team like Lauren to give you advice and really help guide you and recognize that there's no rush. Let's do it one time the right way, as opposed to saying yes to everything that comes along. That's some of the hard stuff, you know. I'm in the middle of something right now where they wanted me to send the designs so they're going to get started and we can rush this collection before the contract was signed. And I love them. I love them. And I also trust them. But I couldn't do that. That's bad business. And I decided not to be insulted that they asked me to do that, but just focus on let's get this signed so we can move as quickly as possible. And that's the way it went. I mean, you just really have to make wise decisions that you won't regret later.
Yeah, I think that Michel is absolutely correct. I mean, I agree with so much of what he has said. I think you know, I don't know about Michel and Lauren whether or not they've made any mistakes in the process of building a brand and you know, licensing with partners, but I have made several mistakes, and I would like to share those because I think it's really helpful. You know, I think we are all so enthusiastic about um, and passionate about what we do, and there have been times when, you know, maybe I have partnered up with a company that is not a bad company, is a great company, but really um, didn't represent in a very, very clear way um, who I am and what I wanted to introduce in the marketplace. So, for example, you know, for me, one of the things that I really love is introducing great high-end, you know, beautiful designs, but at an attainable price point without sacrificing quality. You know, for me, that's always been kind of the hallmark of what I do and who I am and what I want to do. And, you know, there are so many people who have different points of views from that are massively successful. But when I have failed at this process, it's because I have deviated from that. And it's taken, you know, it's taken years for me to kind of get to the place where I have like really kind of clearly now understood that, you know, you're going to be a lot more successful at this if you are very, very clear about your vision and what you want to introduce into the marketplace through a brand to feel like there is room for that. It can't be just that, you know, there isn't something out in the marketplace that you want. Other people have to want it too. I think that that's the other important part of it. And then just being really like sort of true to that vision. So, you know, I've been approached, for example, by some super, super high-end partners that would be a thrill for me to like partner with. But you know, if I can't myself like even afford to like go shopping in that store or to buy that product, I mean, I can't possibly expect the customer that I'm going for to do that. And then on the flip side of it, I've been also approached by really sort of broad-based, big companies that have lots and lots of outlets, but they're manufacturing product at an affordable price point, but they're sacrificing, in my opinion at least, the quality aspect. And although I know that, you know, you can't have it all. There does need to be compromise, as Michelle said. That compromise has to be within a range that you find acceptable. So for me, I will never sacrifice quality to get it to that price point where, you know, people can afford to have it. There have to be other ways for me to get it there, and there are other ways. So I think you really need to be super clear about your point of view and your vision, to stay true to yourself, and to kind of like follow through on that.
So you both said it all and very, very nicely, but I agree. You know, I think patience, number one, and that's really difficult. I know for me, especially, you know, you get rolling on something, it's exciting, but it may not be the best fit. You know, it may not be, whether it's finding the right designs or the right price point, you know, does it represent who you are? Sometimes it's okay to walk away and say, this isn't for me. And likewise, you know, it may not be for the company either. And that's okay to say, we're going to take it in a different direction. So I think having that patience to know when you're going to put yourself out there and align with a partner, that it is a success on both sides. I'm working with a company now who, you know, has said to me, what do you want to see? What do you need? You know, here's a void that we see, and we see that you're doing a lot of this. Could we team up together? And, you know, it's a really good back and forth of me being able to help them create a void, and vice versa. I'm able to get my ideas and concepts and products out there. And that's a really happy marriage. So I think just patience can be, you know, number one, my advice, and saying no is okay. And then just making sure it does represent who you are. You know, I am family plus function equals fabulous. I want this to work for people in high traffic homes, whatever the product line is. And so to make sure that the companies who I am going to work with also have that same vision, or the ability to represent the things that you know, I stand for as well. So I think we're all on the same page with those being some of the trickier parts of navigating how you put yourself out there.
Definitely. I'm curious, and I have to ask it because it's something that I think about often, knowing that Vern travels a lot back and forth to work on product development with us at Trend. How do you all manage to juggle the balance between handling your interior design clients that I know you all still have to work with, and also making sure that your product design is going smoothly and you feel like everything is going the way that you want to go, the way that you envision it?
I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be 100% honest. I sleep very little. Let's start there, because there's still a few things that I won't compromise on. You know, I do one thing every day for me, probably first thing, and it just keeps me grounded. That's probably my workout. But honestly, other than that, guys, I sleep very little. But I often remind myself why I started. You know what I mean? And that for me, especially, and especially this year, my presence in the industry and the opportunities that I have represent a much larger group. And so I don't ever want to squander an opportunity or not do my best. So if I sacrifice a little sleep in order to wear all these hats, then that's just what I do. But I feel like I always tell myself, the deals are going to get bigger, Michelle. You're not going to have to do as much. You're going to get bigger deals. You're going to make more money. You can accept less design clients. And I'm also laughing at myself because I don't know when that's going to happen. Because, you know, it's still important to me to kind of be a man on the ground and take those consultations and walk through a project and get excited and communicate the ideas. I mean, great designers are always learning, always growing, always evolving. And I can't do that solely designing product all day. I have to work with some clients sometimes. So I think I'll always do that. Hopefully I'll just have them that are so rich, and I'm designing castles, you know, that I won't have to have 15 clients on the roster. But time management is key. And honestly, truly, my big opportunity is my team. You know, I try to hire people for my weaknesses, and just like Vern. And the more I can delegate, the better I'll be able to manage it all.
Smart.
Yeah, I think it is really arduous. There's no like sort of secret to it. It just requires hard work, which is why I think you have to be passionate about this. Um, I really, the longer I'm in this business, the more I firmly believe it really doesn't matter how big your name is, how big your presence is. If you are not loving what you're doing, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, if you're not fresh, if you're not really like hands on and involved, I think that's when things start to really unravel. Because the cards are sort of stacked against you anyway. So you really need to kind of just love what you do in order to stand a chance at succeeding. I mean, and I really feel that way. I feel that those people that you see out there who have built great businesses that everybody's envious of and thinks, oh, you know, that's what I would like to be someday. I guarantee you, all of those people are super, super passionate about what they do. You know, I've got a great husband at home. I've got 2 kids. I've got a 9-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son. We have about 500 pounds of dog. You know, like so many other people, we adopted a dog, another dog during the COVID lockdown. So we have 5 huge dogs. So, you know, outside of, you know, design and work, you know, I'm passionate, super passionate about my family. And um, for me, I find the strength and the ability to like just, you know, power through and to make it happen. You know, I work more efficiently because I do have, um, you know, this personal life at home that I really care about. So I think that that's part of it too. You know, oftentimes, you know, Danica, you know this, I will take the very, very first flight out, and you know, and then I will take the last flight back home, so that, you know, if there's a chance that I can drop the kids off at school, if there's a chance that I can pick them up or tuck them, you know, in at night before they go to bed, i'm gonna I'm gonna make that work. I also, you know, I don't take on a ton of private clients anymore. I still love private client work. I think there's nothing that can ever replace that. You know, to be able to go into somebody's home and to be invited into their home and help them create something that reflects them and that will make their life better is still just a huge honor. It's an unbelievable honor that anybody would let me into their home to, you know, work on what is potentially the biggest investment that they will have made in their lifetime. Um, but if but with everything that's going on, you know, I just can't take on the same level of client work. So I make sure that every year, you know, I've got like 3 or 4 private clients that I'm, you know, really in sync with and that I really love working with. And that allows me to, you know, stay fresh and stay in the game, but at the same time allows me to be a family man, and allows me to like work on, you know, shows, and allows me to also product design.
So, well, first I'd like to say, Vern, I'm so glad you have 5 dogs because we have 4, and I get flack for that from my husband. So, see, honey, Vern has more dogs. But no, I mean, I love everything y'all said. I think, you know, my clients and friends and family always say to me, how do you do it all? And I get asked that all the time. And it's a hard question. We all know that. Anybody who loves what they do and are passionate and we're our own business owners, there is no answer to that question. You just do it, and you do it because you love it with every ounce of your being. And, you know, us creatives are also entrepreneurs and building the business. And, you know, we don't sleep because we would rather be designing something, finishing with a client, you know, working those hard late hours to be able to get to the other side. And I think for me, I've been, so much of my career has been all designing and private clients, and my scales are tipping, but I'm not fully to that point yet where I can say I'm not going to take on those clients yet. And so I'm at this, I have to do it all. I have to do it all the time. And I'm happy with that. But I rely on my partners and team to help with the design clients. I have an awesome husband, and I have two kids, also 9 and 10, two girls, and they ride horses and are very busy. And but those are the reasons that we do work so hard to do both sides. So it's definitely not an easy thing, but again, because of that passion and drive and wanting to see your name in lights, you do all of those things to be able to put out great design. And I think the other thing is, at one point, many years ago, I had interns and assistants, and I probably had 6 people working for me. And if I sent one of them to even deliver like boxwood balls for a bowl, it wasn't me. And that was tough for a lot of people. They want Michelle, they want Vern, they want Lauren. Like, that's a big part of why people trust your brand today to buy your product, is because you've established yourself as that person who they rely on and trust. And so I think building that success has to come from you personally.
Yeah.
So my note is that I need a husband and at least 4 to 5 dogs.
Yes,
I thought scaling myself, or like dividing myself in 2 was going to be the answer, but I just need a husband and a dog. Okay, I got it.
Multiply, definitely multiply. That's key. Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to make sure that if anybody has any questions for our panelists, please feel free to put your questions in the chat or in the Q&A section. We're going to dig in a little bit to a couple of questions that we got ahead of the webinar. One of them is an interesting one, which is, what are some red flags that you all would recommend looking out for when conducting a licensing contract with a brand?
I think every situation is unique, and I think we all have some of the same answers, but like really specifically to me, I wanted to be sure why they chose me. What about you? What about your brand wants to align with me? How can I possibly represent? And then what's your win and what's my win? How is this making sense? And is this an equally yoked partnership? And is it novel? I hate to be, negative, but it's a thing. It's a real thing. Or is this a long-term partnership? Or it's just politically correct? And I mentioned earlier about, sharing designs prior to contracting. It's so difficult to trust the process. I want them to stay on the hook. I want them to want me even more. I gotta show them these designs. And without a contract, those designs could be produced, but no credit to you. Ideas are just that, intellectual property. It's very difficult to prove. And you don't want to go into every situation, with negative a thought, but you do want to protect yourself, much less than them hurting you. I think it's about just protecting yourself. I think one of the other issues that I ran into, kind of piggybacking on Vern, is could this company actually execute this product the way that I need them to? And am I compromising too much? And, for me, nothing happened in the order that I thought it would. I thought, oh, it'll be fabrics first, and then it'll be this, and then it'll be that. Like, nothing happened in the order that I thought it was going to happen. So I think detaching myself from the idea that I had in my head of how things were supposed to happen, I think that's our own personal red flag. That's my probably biggest bit of advice about it, and to allow things to be organic and feel good. And I think clients work with people that they like. And I think in our position of being designers and licensing, we should work with companies that we like also. I think that's really important.
I think that's a really super strong point that Michelle just made. Um, I think you have to trust your gut, not just about whether or not the direction that something is heading is the right direction and whether this is a good fit for you, but you also have to trust your gut about who you're getting into partnership with. Um, you know, companies, invest a huge amount of resources um, into this process. It's expensive. The designing is a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. Not selling what we're doing short, but your partners are also very much on the line too, or they should be. And I think that that's something to think about. You could create the world's most incredible design that is not out there that everybody can benefit from. But if there isn't the marketing arm behind it that's willing to get the message across, that product may or may not succeed. So you really want to make sure that when you're partnered with somebody, that not only do you feel comfortable with them, not only are you on the same page in terms of the vision and the quality and what you're trying to execute, but that they're also willing to dedicate the time, the energy, and the resources into getting the product out into the marketplace successfully. And that's something that I had to learn the hard way. So I would definitely say that that's something to look out for.
So I think two things going into your contract with somebody to make sure that it is an equal and fair representation of what you're putting out there. I think that would be a red flag to make sure, whether it's royalties or possession of design or length of time, relationship, those are making sure, and we as designers don't want to be legal and looking at it that way, but you have to put your business hat on to make sure that yes, it's beautiful, it's amazing, and all these people are going to buy it, but does it make sense for both parties? And I think that's what you guys are saying. And the other part, which Vern talked so greatly about, is the marketing. So I have found, just even last week, I'm working with a company and they said, well, let me show you what our showroom is going to look like on paper, for market, to say, here's where I see your designs going. And I thought that's such a great way to make me feel good that they're going to be showcasing what we're all working so hard for properly. Because if it doesn't get out there and nobody sees it, the marketing part of our business is a huge aspect to success. And looking at their social media, how do they do in terms of what they put out there online, who's running that, maybe having conversations with those people. I had mentioned earlier, I work with a great PR and marketing team, and I would highly recommend that, especially as somebody, breaking into the product licensing world. It's just so nice to have somebody who sees it from a third party perspective to ask all of the right questions to make sure you're going down the path. That there's so many angles and parts and pieces to not only getting the product designed, but then getting it out there. And you want to make sure that start to finish, that is a success.
Now, Lauren, you talked about, taking a look at a brand's social media presence. There was a great question from Isabel asking, is having a strong social media presence imperative before reaching out to a brand if you're pursuing licensing? How do you all feel about that?
Yeah, I don't know if it's
I'm sorry.
right order. Okay. No, you go.
I was going to say that, I'm sorry to step on you. I underestimated that before, the social media presence. Totally underestimated. I actually happen to now enjoy Instagram. It takes too much damn time, but it's so much fun. It's so much fun. But I just decided to look at it a different way. Yes, it's a time suck, but it's also an opportunity. Like, Instagram is basically the Michel Smith Boyd magazine. and I can share whatever I want to about myself, and I can send out whatever messages I want to. I can communicate whatever I want to. You get to see me being goofy, attempt at sexy, my love for fashion, my love for food, my love for and luxury. Everything that I do is always pointing to figuring out how to luxury and what that actually means. Luxury as a verb, as a noun, and subjectively. So I think social media is really important. I think that there's no one that I meet at this point that I don't check their social media. Every brand, every person, every designer, every client, let me see who this person is, or at least the messages they're putting out into the world. I think it's huge. You cannot underestimate that, just like a kid filling out an application for a job. If you have something offensive on your social media, you might want to take that off because your potential employer is going to look at that. Same thing for us. With even more responsibility because we are our brands, we are our product. So yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, I would absolutely concur. I think exactly what Michelle said is correct. Your Instagram feed should be viewed as like you're making your magazine, what you're about. Michelle really was sort of underscoring how his page is really about luxury, and that's really true to the essence, the DNA of his brand and what he does. You look at mine, it's going to feel different than that. There's like there's a lot of travel, but there's a lot of family stuff, because
Yeah.
I really believe in creating things for the home that are going to withstand kids eating ice cream on the sofa, are going to withstand 500 pounds of dog taking a nap with you on the sofa. So for me, that part is really important. But having a partner who's really involved in social media and who has a great presence in social media is super helpful too. And I think that that's really something to look for, because that is how people so often get their messaging today, whether that's good or bad. That is just sort of what it is. So you want to make sure that you have a partner who is active in social media, who is in sync with you, who is promoting you through social media. Because if people are following you and you're promoting what you're doing, that's great, but they're already following you. They're already your fan. They're already supportive of what you're doing. So what you're trying to do is kind of reach that broader audience. You want the fans of that brand, that partner that you're with, to also know about you. They may not know about you. They may not know that, or they may know your name, but they don't know what you're about. So it's really important that you as part of that whole marketing thing that we were sort of discussing, you can design something great, but if the word doesn't get out there, so what? And that is part that, designing, I liken it to an iceberg. Okay. The part above the water that everybody sees is what you're designing. Okay. It's the design effort and the end product and all that. But below the water, where that's like the 90% of the iceberg, that is like everything else. It's the business aspect. It's the quality control. It's the marketing. That is a huge part of why that product is going to be successful or not successful, is what is below the water. So I think social media is super important, and it's super important to make sure that you're with a partner who's very active in it.
So I think social media has obviously played a huge part in all of our businesses, and Instagram in particular being obviously such a highly visual social media outlet. And people, I think something several years ago that kind of hit me is that I kept getting question after question: what paint color is that? How can I buy that lamp? I have one pendant light that I use in a project, and I must have sold like 15 of these one pendant lights like in 30 days. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, people do want to know from you what you're doing and how they can do it too, or how can they have that. And so for us, I feel like, yes, if you want to have that successful product line, your social media presence does have to be good and strong and active and interactive as well. But so does your partner. So, you know, who you're working with definitely does have to have a good presence to get your product out there. And something that has been a hot topic in my mind lately is how Instagram is being used to buy product so easily. And Michelle said this at the beginning before we went live. He's shopping for clothes and fashion, you know, so am I. This whole swipe up and then I just bought a scarf, like it's happening. And I feel like that's about to translate. It is already translating into the design world. And so to have that really strong and interactive social media presence for you and your partners, I think is only going to continue to grow for our industry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, as far as what you do licensed collections for, Kayla asked a really great question. She said, do you feel like a licensed collection is worth it if the marketing and exposure is great, but the money may not be great?
I mean, nobody starts out on top. I don't know where Kayla is in her process, but for me, and not to get too personal, but you know, the percentages started out a little bit lower than they are at this point, you know, and that's just real life. You build to where you want to go. So I don't think that would necessarily deter me, but I would just ask myself, how much closer does it get me to the end game? If this is my goal, if this is what I want, how does this thing get me closer? Or is it in the direction? Is it on the path? But I wouldn't necessarily rule that out because, you know, I'm not making as much money as I thought, because if it's $5, it's $5 you didn't have before. And it's an experience that you didn't have before. And you're getting yourself in front of people that didn't know who you were before. So that's still a win in so many points.
Yeah, I mean, I would say money should never be the primary driver. It's very important. Okay, if you don't have money, you don't have food, you don't have housing, you don't have the basics. So we all need to make a living. And I think you should be valued and you should be paid for your talent. But I think you do have to sort of assess, you know, what you're bringing to the table, and market forces sort of dictate that if you are bringing less to the table, not in terms of talent, but maybe in terms of the ability to get a message across, the social media presence, or whatever, you know, whatever you're bringing to the table, if they're not valuing you for that, then I think that's a red flag. But if you're breaking into this and a company has really sort of taken interest in you and you really don't have much of a name and you don't really have much of a presence, not to say that you won't at some point, then I think it's fair for that company to maybe sort of say, hey, we're putting our necks out, we're taking a risk on you, so we may not be paying you what we would pay somebody with a much larger name or a much larger presence. I think then that's up to you to sort of decide if you're going to take that challenge on. And I would sort of say, you know, if it's a great company and they're bringing the marketing and they believe in you, then that they're making an investment in you, and you should use that as fire in your belly to then go out and say, I'm going to prove to you that I am worth 10 times what you're willing to pay for me, you know. And there's always the ability to renegotiate if your product is extremely successful. You know, contracts have a finite period of time. So, you know, I think it's really important to not undervalue yourself, but to look at the holistic opportunity. What is the whole opportunity that is being brought, and what are you bringing to the table, and is this fair?
Yeah, I think this is one of those trust your gut moments, right? You know, if it feels good and the opportunity is there to grow, then you have to start somewhere, as long as it's fair. You know, that's really important to make sure that on both sides, the opportunity is there to grow. You trust the company, you trust the product line, and there is somewhere to go when you are very new and just starting out at that. Absolutely. But I would, make sure that within that contract, there is an opportunity to say, okay, maybe you've hit X amount of sales, and now let's renegotiate that number so that you're continuing to climb up that ladder. So as long as it's a fair assessment, I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so the next question from Karen is a good one. Can you tell me a big mistake you've made?
I had to unmute myself to laugh. Gosh, so many things. The first thing that comes to mind is talking about it before it's actually a real thing. I think I would caution anyone against that, just because honestly it adds more pressure to the situation. Don't tell your mama. Because your mama's gonna ask you 75,000 times, what about that thing you told me about? I'm gonna tell you when it happens, mama. I'm gonna tell you. Let's see what else. I would just say seek advice. I have done both. I have overshot, asking for too much, and I've undershot and made a lot less money than I could have. I've done both. So you really have to kind of be at peace with your decision, and I think, or what you're going to present or ask for, and hopefully you create an opportunity for an open dialogue and discussion, so that there can be at least some negotiating and not just a definitive no. This is not going to work.
I would say to Karen, we don't have enough time during this session for me to tell you about all my mistakes. I have made lots of mistakes, but having said that, it's important to learn from your mistakes. And, now things are great. But a long time ago, I was given an opportunity to partner with somebody, and this is not their fault. I fault myself. Partner with a company that has a really big name, a really big reach, and everybody in my professional world was like saying to me, "Hey, this is it. This is such an amazing opportunity. You need to do this." And I did it, and in my typical fashion, no matter what you're doing in this profession, you have to roll your sleeves up and work really hard. And I did. And I'm not used to working that hard and not being able to make it something that I personally feel was successful. And I didn't feel like it was successful because I wasn't super proud of what went out into the marketplace. And I should have listened to my gut. Because early on, I got messaging that was about cranking out product much, much faster than I was personally comfortable with. And that product didn't necessarily represent everything that I felt strongly about. It was one of those instances where, the product just wasn't true to me. And I was super regretful about that. So I think, just sort of going back to where we started, be true to yourself, have a clear vision. Don't be afraid to say no, even when everybody around you is saying, you got to say yes. I mean, come on, you got to say yes to this. You don't have to say yes to everything. You have to know when the right opportunity is there and when to say yes, but you also have to know when to say, I'm going to pass because it's not a good fit for me. For me, I will never sacrifice quality. I don't care what the price point is. It could be $1, it could be $10, it could be $20. It still has to be a quality product if somebody's going to have it in their home for me, because the customer, the end consumer, can't differentiate. They can't, in my opinion, sort of say, oh, well, this Vern Yip product came from this different vendor who has different price points, and therefore I'm willing to accept a lower quality product. I never want somebody to have that experience of getting something in their home that has my name on it, that isn't going to last, that isn't going to endure, that they're not going to love. You know, I can deliver the design, but I have to make sure that the quality's there too for the price point. I always want to over deliver. And I think there was an instance when that didn't happen, and I'm super, super regretful of that situation. Thankfully, you know, I've moved way beyond that, and I'm very, very clear about it now. Even if people, if even if 100 people around me are saying yes, you have to say yes. If it feels wrong to me, if it feels wrong to my idea and to my brand, I'm going to say no.
So I would call this a learning experience, but I was approached by a company and worked very hard on many designs, and they're a wonderful company. And I cranked out a bunch of designs that were, personal to me, that would align with the brand. And throughout a lot of the back and forth, I was not communicating with the person who had the ultimate decision-making ability. So there was not a direct line of communication, which made things difficult because I wasn't able to provide what they may have been looking for. So it was tough, and I spun my wheels a lot. And again, this was something where I was very excited to make it happen, almost, at that point at all costs. I was very willing to keep going back to the drawing board. Okay, well, let me fix this, let me do that. And I almost lost myself in that part of the process, as well as I kind of got to the point where I realized, okay, I'm not either what they need or they're not what I need, and our line of communication is fuzzy. So that was just a learning experience to me, to make sure I know where I'm going and who I need to talk to, and that, and I say that with my clients. Lines of communication have to be open for this to be a successful process. And so I think in product development and product licensing, it's really no different.
Yeah, good advice. Good advice, good learning experiences from everybody. I feel like you guys have really imparted a lot of wisdom on everybody that's watching, and definitely been some interesting questions about mistakes and tips you would give. If you could give one last piece of advice before we close out, what would that one piece of advice be to a designer who's really interested in starting out with product development?
This is kind of general, but it helps to guide me. Figure out what you have to offer and what you want back from the industry. And I think that will help guide you and narrow your focus.
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely have a clear vision. Make sure that you are not only true to yourself, but that you are thinking about the consumer and making sure that you're adding value into the marketplace. Nobody just needs another product just because it has a different name on it. They want to make sure that, you're bringing something to the table. And I would say probably the most valuable piece of advice would probably be to be directly involved at all levels, meaning no matter how big your name is, you are never too big to, as I was saying earlier, to say to a sales rep, let me go on the road with you. Let me haul your bags so I can see what your life is about and what you do and what you need. Every sales rep who wants my phone number gets it. And if they tag me on something like, they have their own social media accounts and they're tagging stuff and trying to promote product, on their accounts, I always comment back, me directly. I always comment back and say, hey, this is awesome. This is so great. Thank you for showcasing. If they're showcasing the work of the designer that they service and that designer has has, you know, used the product and they're showing it on their page, I always write back to that designer, thank you, that looks awesome. You are never, I don't care if you have like an entire Instagram department that handles those things for you, you are never too big to be directly involved. I think the minute you think you're too big, the minute you start delegating and making sure that you're, you know, other people are handling things for you is the minute that it becomes dangerous.
So I would say the biggest advice that I have found, logistics aside, is to push the envelope, whether it's your own envelope on creativity. You know, if somebody said no or said redo a design, how can you make it better? Digging deeper and really finding, you know, the next level for yourself, as well as just pushing your own envelope to do more and work harder and be better to get to that point that you want to get to. And it's not easy, and it does take time and patience and hard work. So, you know, I think just within reason, pushing that envelope to get what you want and where you want to be is what I would say, just to go for it.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Vern, Michelle, Lauren, your advice has been incredibly valuable. Even though I will not be designing any product, I will be enjoying your product, but I know there's a lot of people that have been watching that really appreciate you. And I want to say thank you to the Comm Collective for helping put this all together. It is a pleasure to talk to all of you as always. So thank you so much for doing this, and we appreciate everything that you all do for the design industry.
It was a pleasure to be here, honestly. It was great talking with you guys.
Likewise, I'm a fan of both of yours, and I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you. It was nice talking to everybody.
Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you all so much.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.